everybody, what's up, and welcome back to Eggs. This is our first, I guess, live or new show of the new year. So thanks to everybody who's tuned in, for all these years, but Happy New Year and welcome back. Mike and I decided it'd be a good idea to sit down and have just kind of a little catch-up conversation coming off the Aggies and the end of 2023. We're also 340-something episodes into this show, and so it's nice to kind of circle back and talk a little bit and just kind of, maybe give ourselves a little kudos for how far we've come and everybody who's supported us along the way. So what's up, Mike? How are you, man?
I'm good. What he's failing to mention is our guest had internet connectivity issues, so we just decided to talk instead.
Right. Well, it's because I'm a professional. I didn't bring that up. And then Mike pulls back the curtain like he does. Yeah. But I am going to slouch a little more and lean back.
That works.
Get comfortable as long as we're having a conversation here. So we think so. Our guest who's calling in, we're going to reschedule with him and have him hopefully back in a couple weeks. But he's out in North Carolina, and both Mike and I are out in the West. I'm in Utah, and Mike's in Idaho, and we've been having a lot of inclement weather and stuff over the last few days. I guess our guest had some wind and things like that out in his hood too. So we're not totally sure where the problem is, but we're having a problem somewhere. So,
yeah.
Anyway, so we've rescheduled, and just Mike and I thought we'd catch up for a few minutes.
So how you been?
Good, man. Well, I mean, I guess kind of good. So fourth quarter was gross of last year, and so I mean,
gross
lots
good
of
or gross bad?
Well, kind of gross bad, but like on the way to gross good. I think just it's always slow for us in that fourth quarter, and so it's always a little bit stressful. Plus, the spending is through the roof and everything with Christmas, holidays, and travel and all that kind of stuff. So it's a little, stressful period, but we also had just, personal issues. My father passed away in November, right around Thanksgiving time. So that was a challenge. The cost of just everything is through the roof. And so even just to do kind of the stuff that we've always done is like holiday traditions was quite costly this year. So that was kind of a bummer. And, some of our travel plans didn't work out and other stuff like that. But we still had a good holiday. I think people may have heard this story before, but we do kind of a trip instead of presents kind of thing where, although we're still pretty bad and still buy some presents, but we used to, or, back in the olden days, we were overabundant on presents. And what we found was that our kids weren't remembering who gave them what. They weren't particularly grateful or anything. Just like, it's just too much stuff. Mm-hmm. And so we switched over to this deal where we just go on a little trip instead. And so, they get a few smaller things, and then we end up going on a little trip. And so this year's trip was to Island Park, Idaho, which is sort of up near Yellowstone National Park. And it was our second time actually going up there. Our second trip doing this thing as a family was up in Island Park too. And we had a good time up there. And so everybody wanted to do Island Park again. So we did Island Park. And, we went up and did some snow machining and all that kind of stuff. So that was a blast. And, but the big wrench this year that wasn't typical was that instead of doing Christmas kind of at home and then leaving on our trip, we did Christmas in Island Park. Oh, and so rough. We packed a tree, we packed all the gifts up there, we packed everything up there. And so it was a ton of extra work on top of just typical holiday, which is already kind of a lot of work. And so that was, stressful and kind of a challenge. So also it was kind of interesting when we went up there 4 years ago at Christmas or whenever that was, 4 or 5 years ago, there was about 8 feet of snow as a base, and it was negative 30 degrees and just death outside. This time it was 40 degrees and there was only like 10 inches of snow.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of crazy because this year we were up there snow machining, and last time we did like trail riding and stuff. This time we rented like, cool snow machines for going out and jumping stuff and all that. But there was no snow. And so it was kind of a bummer because, we had plenty of fun and everything was cool, but it was a little bit more dangerous because you could hit rocks and stumps and stuff like that because there just wasn't enough snow. Yeah. So global warming got them, I guess. So, but anyway, so that was kind of a bummer. But the other big highlight of our Christmas, and it's one of the Christmas traditions that we do that I actually think is pretty awesome, is every year on the 24th, we do a dinner from a different country. So everybody throws a country in a hat, and we draw one out, and whatever country we draw is basically what our Christmas Eve dinner is. So this year was Korea. And so we had to make Korean food at an Airbnb in Island Park. And so, so it was a bit of a challenge. Luckily, we did, or we had the main dish, and we did beef bulgogi.
Yeah,
And luckily, I was able to do all my marinating and stuff up there. And just by the luck of the draw, they had a barbecue at the house that just had the right kind of grate on top of it that I
okay.
could actually put the meat on without having it all fall through. So we
Nice.
got super lucky, and dinner came out awesome. And it usually is pretty amazing, but it came out really good this year too. So we were impressed, given all the travel and everything else, that it worked out.
Yeah, I like that tradition. Our family does the caroling, and it's the same meal every year, and it's the same uh, desserts and treats and everything. So I feel like
Yeah.
every year it's a Groundhog's Day experience, and I just am living it a little bit older.
Yeah, and we do a traditional like Christmas dinner, right? We always do a prime rib, and so we did that from up there. We actually, unfortunately, it overcooked a little bit. We didn't have our trusty thermometer technology that we use here in the States, or here in the States, here in back home. So, because here I've got wireless thermometers, and I can sit and monitor every piece of the meat from start to finish. But up there we didn't have that, and so we just let it stay in the oven just had too long, and it was still really good, but it was a little more done than I would have liked it to be. So that was kind of a
You need
bummer.
to. I've got this seasoning called Snyder's prime rib seasoning, and I'm telling you, it is by far the best seasoning I've had on prime rib.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll have
I'm
to
gonna
try
have
it.
Yeah, next time I see you, I'll have to give you some of it to
Yeah,
try.
because
It's delicious.
I've used like Traeger's prime rib rub, and this one actually came pre-seasoned, so which was nice. They just bought it at a butcher there actually in Pocatello,
Okay.
and so it was pre-seasoned and everything, and it was pretty good. But yeah, it just you know wasn't exactly the same as if I could have put it on my smoker here. Instead, we had to bake it in the oven, but it came out good and everything was good. So overall, it was a good trip. There's like 11 of us in the house up there, so it was chaos, but we had a good time.
Well, it's fun. Yeah, I did. I went to Oregon to visit my sister,
Oh,
and
nice.
my other sister was in town as well from New York, and so it was nice to catch up with them. And it's funny, we were at a cabin in Sisters, Oregon. That's their ski area, and there was zero snow on the ground. I mean,
Oh,
like
geez.
none of the lifts were running, none of that. So I feel your pain as far as like the not being able to go snowmobiling because
Well, yeah, and these are
they
like old reliables, right? I mean, like that's a ski resort for God's sake,
yeah
and
yeah
up where we were at, I mean, like 8 feet of snow last time to 10 inches this time. Like, I mean, come
yeah.
on, like you should be
Well,
able to rely on a few things.
at least now they're getting some snow. Like the last 2 days they've got several feet, so it's nice to
Yeah,
at
and
least get
I'm sure
some
they're
snowpack on the ground.
Yeah, I'm sure they're
So
thrilled. Yeah, no, I remember during COVID, we did a little family staycation and went up to Park City. So Park City's like 45 minutes from here, but it's world famous for its snow and the mountains and everything up there. And we're able to just get into like an Airbnb, which turned out to be a condo at one of the ski resorts. And but from our porch, we could see the lift,
hmm
and there was so little snow. They were making snow, but you basically had to stay on the little made path to get down to the thing. Up at the
yeah
top there was a little bit of snow, but nothing at the bottom. And so you see all these dudes walking around, and all the, especially up in Park City, got all these Europeans and people who've come in for their big skiing trip, and they're all wearing their super fancy snow gear and all this stuff, and they're just walking around on the grass out there right next to the lift. And it's like, man, how much money did you pay to come to lovely Park City and then just nothing?
yeah
So, and then
yeah
like last year we had like 900 inches. So I mean,
yeah. I
it
know
was
that
like
last
crazy
year
last year.
from October to March April it was just record snow, and so it's kind of funny to
Yep.
see the fluctuation between the two.
Yeah,
But
it's nuts. I guess I'm grateful I'm not much of a skier, so because it hasn't affected me too much. But for Christmas, and this sounds like rich white people problems, but it's not. It's really more of a financing problem. But my brother-in-law was given a snow machine by his wife, so that he could buy one, or so that he had one of his own to ride up there.
yeah,
And so they bought this snow machine, and but now there's no snow.
no
So
snow,
it's like,
so he hasn't even had a
so
chance to use it.
yeah. Yeah, well, my niece got married over the summer, and her husband is a big time snow machine guy. Like he's
Okay.
like and my cousins were that way, so like I know it from when I was a kid, but because all my cousins are snow machiners. In fact, I have one cousin that still rides professionally for a company,
Wow.
and So we were really involved in it when I was a kid, but I just, I don't do it anymore. And so, but he is new to it, but his son-in-law is like a wild snow machiner from Rigby, Idaho, just full on redneck.
Yeah.
He's willing to just jump it off of anything. Like he's a wild man, but I think my brother-in-law was like, oh, well, this is something we can do together and it keeps our family doing things together and stuff like that. So I think he wanted to get into snow machining. But on his first day out with the snow machine, he bent his A arm on a tree stump. And so he had like $1,000 repair right after
on his first day.
On the first day with
That's
the
amazing.
snow machine. So, and I guess anybody who does those kinds of sports, dirt bike, if you use boats a lot, they're always broken. They always have problems and stuff you got to fix. And so, it's just part of the game, I guess. But I felt bad because he just got his brand new snow machine and then,
hit a stump.
So,
yeah,
that's a bummer.
Well,
what about you? So you went up to Oregon. What about your folks and everything? Did you all go, or just you? Or
folks stayed here. They're currently in Vegas, and that's why they didn't go up there, is because they had other plans a few weeks later. Plus, we have to have someone available to watch the dogs, and so that was fun. I've been recording a band lately, and that's been taking up all of my time, which is great. But it's I forgot how labor intensive it is to put 5-6 tracks together.
Well, it's funny because I remember episodes, maybe, I don't know, October, November-ish, where you're going, man, I would like to be doing more of that. And I'd like to start, recording some bands and doing this stuff on the side. And then look at you go. Here you are.
Well, it's funny because
an EP.
You were like, you were the one that was like, I would like to get back into this and do this. I'm like, all right, fine, I'll put a show together. So I put a show together and invited you out. And you're like, nah, man, I can't make it.
I know. No, I felt so bad because I wanted to be there for, not just for your event, which we should probably talk about a little bit because at least from what you told me, it went well. Yeah. And, but also like our friend's band Royal Bliss was in town the next night. And so it could have been quite a fun-filled little music weekend that weekend.
They were actually there the night before. And since I was doing my show the next day, I ended up setting lighting up for my show. I said, hey, I'll just set it up a day before and give you guys some lights. And it was actually really quite nice to meet up with those guys again. And,
I feel bad because I haven't seen them for a long time. We all live in the same city right now. And it's like, those are, they're some of my favorite people. And, but I just, never make time to see them. And so I need to catch them sometime. Yeah,
no, they were, it was good to talk to Neil and we did a show with him back in the day and, we talked about that and, we talked about, future stuff as well. They were actually really kind of impressed with the lighting. And so next time they're in Pocatello, they want to do it again. And then I had my show the next day. It was a toy drive, kind of like a Toys for Tots. But my aunt is a social worker for the elementary schools here in Pocatello. And we ended up, getting presents and gifts and cash donations for her so she can help students in the Pocatello school district to, those who are less fortunate to actually have a Christmas. And so it's kind of nice to,
that's awesome
to do that. So,
very cool. Well, and speaking of Royal Bliss, I'll just give them a shout out. They've got a new single out called Sign of the Times. Go check them out. I think it's just royalbliss.com.
So you want to know something funny that I found out the other day? Huh. Do you remember this right here? The Turner Ground. Okay, so Royal Bliss is in.
Yeah, they're on the inside.
The cover art, right? Mm-hmm. And do you remember Death in December?
Yeah. That was what, Ryan Oliveira? Is that his name?
Yeah, and then Jade. Do you know who Jade is? Jade is the K-Bear guy. He's been on K-Bear for a long time. He was my boss at the radio station I worked at. The guy that hired me, and come to find out, he was in Death in December.
Oh, how funny!
And I didn't know that. You know that photo of the Bleeding Star model, that the white shirt, and he's all emoed out.
Yeah.
that was my boss back in the day,
Oh, how
right?
funny.
And so I found that out, and I instantly got 2 or 3 of these CDs and took them out to him and gave it to him for a Christmas present.
Oh,
And
that's
so that's
funny.
kind of funny. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a
no.
small world, It's like we worked with him back in 2000. That was 2005.
Hmm.
And, 2022, here I am working at a radio station, and come to find out he's my boss. And so it's like
Yeah.
small
Well, it's
world,
funny. I mean,
you
it
know?
is such a small town thing or small. Well, and it's, I mean, even the music industry itself is kind of a small industry, really.
Yeah.
Like, I remember one time you and me were working the Fiesta Bowl down in Phoenix, and you had set up this little outdoor stage setup thing, like kind of a nightclub over an intersection out there. It's
Uh-huh.
really a cool thing to be a part of. And it was right before the Fiesta Bowl. So there's a million people. I want to say it was like,
It was literally a million people on that block,
yeah, literally.
the
Yeah.
block
Cause it was,
party.
they
Yeah.
also do it for, it's on their New Year's Eve thing.
Yeah.
So,
And
so that's to
it's
celebrate
different,
Fiesta Bowl, but there's also the New
different
Year's.
stage setups at intersections going down Mill all the way down to the big park by the Marquee Theater, and that whole
Mhm.
place fills up, and it's literally a million people all the way
Yeah.
down. So
Yeah.
it
They
was a
had,
really cool thing.
yeah, it was huge. And so we went down there and we had set this nightclub thing up, and the end of the night was starting to come, and people were getting close, and they do like I think it was like a sun or something, like the Tostitos sun or something that they drop.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know who's the sponsor these days, but that's who it was back then. And but Blues Traveler was a headliner.
Yep.
And I remember you and I walked over to the Blues Traveler, and we were watching from the side stage. And I remember the guy that was running sound for them was a guy who had run sound at a bar called the Beaumont in Kansas City on my very first tour with like the Mix Mob guys and Cottonmouth Blues
Wow.
guys. And so, but it was just like, it made me realize how small the industry really is. Like,
Yeah.
even if it's 1,000 people or 10,000 people, it's like in the grand scheme of the world, it's not that many people, right? It's a pretty tight knit group. And so just like what you're describing, it's like you cross paths with these people over and over again, and then everybody just kind of moves about. And then, there's some, spot where they cross over. And so, and actually, I mean, you mentioned earlier, or, that I too had been whining about trying to get back into the music biz a little bit. And so my approach is I tried to put together a TV script that I would like to pitch with our friend and podcast alum, Johnny Edney, but John Necro
Yeah.
from OPM. And he and I are going to get together and pitch this show, I think is what we're going to try to do.
Nice.
So anyway, so mid-February, I'm going to try and do a California run and go spend some time with one of my buddies, and then also go out and see Johnny and pitch this, or see if we can put together a pitch.
If you guys haven't tuned into those, we did 2 like 4-hour long interviews with Johnny. The by far our longest interview ever.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the lead singer of OPM, and Perfect Day, the song that we use for our intro, is actually OPM. So if you're listening to our Aggie Awards this year, I did the throwback. I played the full intro that we used to do with the chorus and verse and all this stuff, and so you'll get a little splash of that. And then I even did the old outro as well. I was like,
awesome.
Yeah.
No. And so Johnny's great. He's been in and around the music business for a long time. Now he owns a brewery in Thousand Oaks, California called Tarantula Hill, and it's great. And but I think he asked if I would come on his podcast while we're out there. They started podcasting.
Oh, he's doing one now?
Of us.
Nice.
And so sometime, and then if you and I are ever out there together, I'm sure we can do it again. So
that'd be fun.
But no, it was really fun and cool. And so I'm glad to try and be rekindling kind of that relationship. I mean, I see him once or twice a year is all, so it's nice to catch up and have something. But I was explaining to him, it's just like, man, I really miss music. I really miss not being involved. I hate paying for tickets.
That right there's the whole reason why.
All that stuff. And
I set up that light show so I could see the Royal Bliss show. That's all
exactly,
I wanted to do.
Exactly. Yeah. No. So anyway, in a never-ending search to try and find something to do, I've reached back out to him in hopes we can maybe get something going. So Netflix, if you're listening, just say yes. That's all they need to do.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
So recording this band, right? In college, they give you studio time to record. You have to record, And the problem is they only give you a certain amount of studio time. So the whole time you're in there, you're setting up mics, doing a quick sound check, you hit record, and you hope it's a good take so you have a cool product at the end. But you don't have time to do 2 or 3 takes. You have time to do maybe 2 total. And so you can't really perfect things. And here I've been recording, in this room, and in the back room, I got a drum set, and we set up the guitars in here, and it's like a really confined little area, but I'm really impressed with how things have turned out. And I mean, we've gone through and we've overdubbed guitars, we've overdubbed drums, we've done vocals. We've spent a lot of time actually perfecting stuff. And for local band out of Pocatello, and recording here with decent mics, not the best, not the worst. I'm actually really proud of how it's turning out. So
yeah, that's awesome. Well, maybe when the band is ready to share, or when they publish some of this info, let's put a piece in the show or something, just so people can check it out. So, because it would be cool for them to see, especially given the fact that over the years we've talked about your audio engineering and we've talked about you doing things like that, and it'd be cool to show some of the work.
Yeah, I think we're going to do a CD release, even though CDs are kind of archaic, but it'd be nice to generate some revenue for them and see how it goes.
I was always playing with the idea because, like, even the last time the OPM came through, and this has been years ago, but CDs were like starting to go out. We were switching to everything digital, and we were trying to figure out, how do you sell a digital record at a concert so that people can buy your music, right? And, of course, everybody gets it on Spotify or whatever now, but we had come up with an idea, years ago, to do jump drives. And so we preload the album on a jump drive and then just sell the jump drives.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty slick. People would buy digital music that way, but it was like, but ultimately everybody just goes Spotify anyway. Or
there's something about the CD that, it's like having the cover art, having the jewel case, and having the vinyl, you can do short batch vinyl releases, and they're not too expensive. They're not cheap, but they're not horrible.
Right.
You definitely wouldn't make money on it, but just having the physical product is something that's cool to me. I miss that.
Yeah, I was trying to explain that to my sons, and obviously, I mean, this makes us, old men, and I find them turning more and more into the get off my yard guy, like by the day. But I was trying to explain this to my son, the experience of, on Tuesday when all the new music dropped, I would go down to my favorite record store in Pocatello, this place, Budget Tapes and Records. I would go over there. I would talk to the guy that owned the shop. He knew me pretty well because I'd been coming in and out of there for years.
He sold tickets for us when we did the shows.
He sold tickets for a couple things.
And the Jimmy World show.
Yeah, he was an amazing dude. Yeah, I can't remember his last name. His first name was Rich. He was a really good guy. And so we'd go down there on Tuesday with our like $20 in our hand, because CDs were about $15-$16. And the wall would have all the new stuff, right? So here's the 10 new albums that came out today. Right. And there'd be lots of like indie stuff that wasn't there, but the big releases were all on the wall. And so you had, one $20 bill. So it's like, okay, I get one of these. So you're looking at the case and you're doing all this stuff. And a big part of the experience of buying that music was opening the case. Or do you remember that people used to hide images behind the tray, like the disc sat on? So you pop that tray out and there'd be another picture back there, or there'd be cool stuff in the liner notes or whatever. I mean, like the artwork was like part of the experience of the music, right? Yeah. And so I really miss
you'd
that.
You'd be listening to the album, reading everything on the back of the artwork, and like looking at like, this is the drummer's name, and this is the guy that produced it, and this is all the cool little details that you don't really pick up on just Spotify. Most of the time, you'll put it on a playlist, close the app, and go back to what you're doing. And then if it's a song that kind of like stands out to you, you'll open it up, hit the like button, and close it again. You don't have the same kind of physical experience that you used to in listening.
Well, and
that
was the thing, right? And the last band I saw that did this really well was 21 Pilots, and I was just aware of them because of my kids. But and I'm sure there are other examples, but this is the last one that I saw that did it really well, where the artwork for the album matched the artwork for the concert, matched the artwork for the videos, matched, and they had built this whole thing. And the last band that I remember before them that had done that, like, or my favorite example of it, was Linkin Park, because
Yeah.
they had a designer in the band. Mike Shinoda is quite the artist and designer. And so he did all their stuff. And so they always had these really cool themes, and, the artwork was awesome. And then that was sort of echoed in the merch and the show and all that stuff. And so, and 21 Pilots did sort of that full, around experience. And I think that was like the closest to something like that I'd seen, especially like with my boys, they listen to a lot of rappers and stuff, but I mean, they just drop music on Spotify. Like,
Yeah.
maybe it's got an album cover, like a photo or something for the cover, but that's kind of it. I mean, there's no greater experience than that. And so I've been trying to do more of, buying physical stuff. I don't really buy CDs anymore, because I don't even think I really have a CD player anymore. But
Yeah.
but like I just ordered the new Czarface album on vinyl. And it was like a limited edition vinyl, and I never listened to it. I haven't pulled it up on Spotify. I've only heard the record. And I have like a Danger Mouse record that actually was pretty cool, because it came with the vinyl, but it also came with a CD. So there's a CD.
Oh, so you could both. Okay.
So it came with both. And then, all the liner notes and the artwork that accompanies it and stuff. And it's just, I don't know. For me, I mean, maybe it's just nostalgia, like what you're talking about, but it's like, that was part of the experience of buying it. And I feel like so much of music now is kind of like, I don't know, neither here nor there. Like, it's just one more song on the playlist, and you're probably not listening in.
Yeah. I remember, when I first started DJing, I would get a weekly CD, sometimes 2 or 3 a week, one for country, one for pop, one for hip hop, whatever. And there was one that was called the RH series, and it was just the top 40 songs, hip hop, country, whatever, the top bangers for the week. And the first thing I would do when I would get those is I'd go in my car with a highlighter, and I had 3 or 4 different highlighters. I had a yellow one, a pink one, like a purple one. And I would I would throw the CD in the car. I would listen to it and like, oh, that's a good track. And then if it was like up tempo, it'd be yellow. If it was slow, it'd be purple. If it was country, it'd be, whatever. And I would highlight the list that I would get, and that I would sit there focused on music and finding stuff. And now it seems like it's too passive, and it's not like, there's such a overload of crap in Spotify that it's like you really have to go and have a mission of finding a specific genre, or finding, what am I looking for this week, and actually look for that, versus, just find a playlist and hit play. And it's just a whole different experience these days. And I don't know that I like it. And I don't know that I like that Spotify is the go-to, because who was I listening to? I was listening to an interview the other week. Some guy that had like, a major, like a YouTube status, where just millions of plays. Oh, I think it was Snoop Dogg. It was like Snoop Dogg was sitting there, and he's like talking about how many plays and how many hours of streams he got, that equated to like $70,000 total that he got a check for from Spotify. And he'll make more than that in one show,
Yeah.
And so it's like, what's the point of even having it available? Because the artists, they just don't make any money. I mean, like, yeah, it's now available on the platform that everyone has, and your fans can go and listen to it. But what does that do for the artist? Absolutely nothing. It's ruined the entire industry.
Well, what it is, it's the same argument that people give to every designer they want to rip off, which is exposure.
Yeah.
Every time you want to rip off an artist, you just go, oh, but you'll get great exposure, And so this is the thing, right? I mean, it's kind of a necessary evil, or a gift and a curse, right? I mean, I have discovered a lot of music I would have never heard in my life because of Spotify. It's exposed me to a lot of things. It's, helped me find new artists that I like. It's helped me, so there's value to it there. But at the same point, those artists aren't being paid unless I go to their tour. And a lot of the bands that I'm finding are in foreign countries and stuff. So I'm not going to see them, right? So they're just, they're not, they're not playing where I'm going to be at. And so, and even if they do, what do they get? My ticket and $50 t-shirt or something? Like, it's not like they're going to be able to make a living off of that. Right. And like you're saying, I mean, even a guy like Snoop Dogg, if he can't make enough money to like probably cover his car payments, doing Spotify, then it's like, what's he doing? And I mean, I guess it's exposure for young kids who don't have any money, and want to pay $9 or whatever. So like I can see an argument like why it's good, because at least the music's getting in people's ears.
Yeah,
But I do
it's
feel
the
like it's pretty
Napster argument
opportunistic.
from back in the day,
Yeah.
right? You know,
Yeah,
everyone's freaking out about Napster, and next thing you know, we got Spotify. That's the same thing, but who's making the money? It's the
Spotify and Joe Rogan.
Yeah,
that's about it. So, but yeah, no. So it's kind of a weird thing. I mean, I can see a value in it, and I do. I mean, I use Spotify day in and day out. I mean, I use it all the time.
I use it too. I mean, it's the easiest way to
it is the
back
way,
and forth with clients.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it is great for a lot of things, but yeah, it is. One of these kind of moral dilemmas. Because, like I say, I mean, anytime somebody's wanted to get something cheap or free from me as an artist, hey man, but I'll get you exposure. And it's like, okay, well, yes, exposure is valuable too, right? So, but is it valuable enough for me to do this?
Well, that's inherent.
Ostensibly,
it's like the guy that created the Coke logo is getting exposure, right? But he got paid a crap ton of money to do it. You know, it's like,
well, or you've got the lady that made the Nike logo that got paid next to nothing to do it, and she gets exposure all day.
Yeah.
Now I know they've gone back and they've tried to make things right with her and give her, some more money, and they've given her some things and stuff. So, I imagine it's a little bit more equitable, but I imagine that what they're paying her is nowhere near the billions they're making. And, so anyway, but yeah, so I don't know. I get it. But like as an art person or as somebody who's been around musicians and stuff, I know that this is a challenge for them to have to deal with.
Yeah, there's got to be a better way. I think it's just a matter of someone needs to get creative and come up with the Spotify 2.0.
Well, even do you remember when all this first started, like sort of just the iTunes model, where at least you had to go buy the track or buy the album. There's still sort of a digital version of this where you had to go buy the thing, and but now with the subscription models and all that stuff.
I mean, there's Bandcamp. You can go and support a local artist. It's just a matter of getting people to do it, and it's.
Yeah, and I think at the same time, a lot of artists, I mean, they have more ability than ever in history to self-publish and do things on their own. And, even if they can't afford studio time, they can record stuff in GarageBand. And I mean, you can get to market with basically just using your phone, I mean, so there's, new ways of making income and things for artists out there, or maybe ways of building an audience that's truly yours, not sort of financed by the record label or whatever. Yeah. And so I think that there's, opportunities that come in this new technical age too. But at the same time, I mean, just, I don't know. I feel like my boys are missing out on the music experience that I had, but maybe it doesn't matter.
Well, do you know who Rick Beto is? He's a producer, pretty large guy. He's got a YouTube channel that he'll go and he'll record like interviews with the lead singer of the Police and major bands from back in the day. He just did this interview with a guy last week where he's talking about how in 1996 Bill Clinton passed a law that I can't remember the name of it, but it like allowed companies like iHeartMedia to have 100 radio stations under their belt, and it took the local programming from, like there's 8 radio stations in this market that's kind of like that market, but now they're all owned by iHeartMedia, and there's one guy that determines the music that goes across all platforms for iHeart and Clear Channel and these major conglomerates of radio stations. And he was talking about how rock music changed in that time frame by, trying to get the same sound, trying to get the same, it's all the same person putting it out there. So now instead of, like Linkin Park was kind of like the time frame where this happened. Now everyone wants to sound like Nickelback, and it's the same 5 producers doing the same, Hinder, Nickelback, Candlebox. Like all these bands sounded identical because it's the same 5 producers putting it in the same system, trying to get the same sound, trying to get it stunted the creativity of rock music.
Well, it's like the Costco model, right? They just homogenize everything for a bulk audience, so you end up with all these things that sound similar, and they're all taste, because I've heard this too, like with like electronic or pop music, that basically there's an algorithm, and every song is sort of
5 chords.
Yeah. Everything is sort of programmed around these same 5 chords because we know that through data and analytics, those songs perform the best.
Yeah.
So if you want to be the song that performs, you'll use the data to go, well, we need to have more of this or more cowbell. that's performing really well or whatever it is. And so, yeah, no, it's really gross. And what's unfortunate is like, I don't think it ever really killed the creativity in that there are bands out there making good music,
Yeah.
but you have to go find them because they're, you used to discover music on the radio and now you just don't.
Well, it used to be a badge of honor to be like, hey, this radio station found this band and made them huge. Now it's like, you don't have that anymore. You don't have the local DJ that's spinning local tunes or the local, like, hey, I found this really cool band. Check it out. I'm going to play it 5 times because I love it. It's like that doesn't happen anymore.
Like I remember as a kid, when you went into different areas, like went to different cities, you would find stuff that was awesome. Like anytime I was in California and I could get K-Rock, like what an awesome thing to get. They always had, music I'd never heard and whatever. And like even growing up in Pocatello, but coming to Salt Lake, like K-Bear 101 in Salt Lake was legit. It had like its own thing going on. There's also a hip hop channel down here that I used to like, and you could catch whatever's cool in hip hop.
Miraculous is on that one.
And so it's like there's, there used to be like a real music discovery that happened that way, where you would get exposure to things that are unique and interesting.
Or the Edge down in Phoenix used to be
the Edge was one of those.
And it's like you don't have that anymore. You don't have the ability for the discovery. It's all the same, 20 songs over and over and over again. And I miss that. I think it's sad.
Yeah, no, it's a real bummer. And that's the thing too. I go back and forth, and maybe this is just jogging with aging and trying to figure out how to be old. But it's like these experiences, like they were critical for me. And I catch myself a lot of times with the boys going, hey, you should do it this way because this is how I did it. You should go to check out this band, or you should produce this t-shirt, or you should do whatever, because this is how I used to do it. And this is, that was the experience that worked for me. So I share my experience. Right. But then I second guess myself, and maybe it's just my own insecurity, but I always go back and I go, well, is it the experience you want to have? Right.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, so like, we're talking about album artwork. Like for me, it was really cool to just get that one album every week, or maybe every couple weeks even. And I had my one album, and you prayed that the whole album was good because you bought it for the single that you heard on MTV or something. And you go and you get the album, and, is it going to be good? Like, is there just one crappy song, one good song, and the rest is garbage? Or, is it going to end up being good? And that whole experience, you're rolling the dice, you're working with your hard-earned money to try and get, you're only $20, and this is the one thing you get to buy. And, all that stuff. And it was just like, all of that made music really important to me when I was young. Right. And and that's why I got into it so much when I was young, was because, these were the bands I had. I could afford to buy their album, and I looked forward to every release and that kind of thing. And that's how you got into stuff. But it's like, I don't know, maybe that experience isn't important to people, and maybe it is just lost. But but I hate to think that.
Well, I mean, and the other day I was watching this like Instagram reel, and this DJ was, that's another thing that's crazy, is like the platform DJs have been put on. They used to be in a back room. They were just a music selector, and they weren't idolized. Now it's like you're the lead singer of a rock band now, and they're idolizing you like that. And I kind of don't enjoy that. I don't like, it is what it is, but it's not really my thing. And I saw this DJ doing his thing, and then there was this kid next to him that just looked like his world was like, oh my goodness, what, like that experience of the live show. And he's like up by the DJ looking out and could experience that. And I remember, like the first time I got to go to a show and I was side stage, and, getting that viewpoint from being up on stage, looking out at the crowd and seeing, like how cool that is. And so it's like everyone experiences things differently. And, whether it's the live environment, whether it's the CD, whether it's the, there's that kid that was there, you could see it in his face, how cool it was for him, and how he was having a moment. And, and those moments are what fuels everyone, I think. And, it's weird what music can do. And I think, like last night, for example, I had the band over, and they were just doing a practice session. They were just jamming, and those are the moments that I live for. It's like five people got together and created this content that just came out of nowhere. It's like there's a guitar sitting here over on the side, and in the hands of the right person and the right group of people, you create something that's miraculous. And that to me is what music's all about. And I think that's the important part.
Yeah.
It's like sharing stuff with other people and creating something out of nothing.
Well, and that's the thing, especially with music. It's like it's a whole nother kind of communication. I find that I'm really affected by music, and I mean, it's funny. I took my niece out to New York and Boston to see the singer Mo that I just love, and we went out to see her. And both nights we got front row, and we were right up against the barricade. And like halfway through the show, the first night, like I remember my niece turned and looked at me, and I'm just bawling like a child, right? And it's like all these kids are in the crowd just having a good time listening to their pop music or whatever. But there's something about her music that's just like, for me, it was
Speaks to
really
you.
impactful. It speaks to me.
Yeah.
And it's not even so much about the lyrics, but I think it's like the physical sound,
Yeah.
like the sound of it for whatever reason resonates in my head. Like it doesn't really have that much to do with the music. It's kind of a weird phenomenon. But I find that with other bands too. Like, there's this band I've been listening to a lot lately called The Warning. And they're like these three sisters from Mexico. They do this like cool metal rock kind of stuff. And like, I'm listening to those guys and it's like, I'll find they hit a note or they do a thing. And then I start getting emotional about it. Right. And it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know why. I don't have like some memory or something or some trauma, but it's like, but it can evoke an emotion out of me. And it's like, so then I of course get hooked and I listen for, a million hours and I do all that stuff. But it's like, but some music can be really impactful that way. But like you're saying, I mean, in the hands of the right person, it's like they can sort of conjure this, right? And I mean, in your case, you do something similar as a DJ. You sort of put together mashups or combinations of things to evoke feelings, whether that's a feeling of euphoria so you can go dance, or
So
it's whatever. But I mean, you're forcing people to move their body through your art. I'm drawing pictures, and hopefully people think they're cool. I wish they would buy more of them. Just saying.
yeah.
But I mean, nonetheless, it's pretty cool. And so I mean, I think art is a pretty important thing.
So I you have really talented scratch DJs and battle DJs and different styles of music, the house music or trance or whatever, style, format or genre, that you're into. And I would say that skill is important, but song selection is more important. And being able to put the right song at the right time to evoke that emotion, and knowing, oh, I got that emotion, but it's not going to last. I have to get out of it and I have to move on to this, or being able to read the crowd and being able to connect with them is 100% it, and being able to see that guy in the corner that's getting into it and then seeing all his friends getting, like it's, it's a community thing, and it's getting on the same wavelength, and I've talked about this before. You'll have one of those nights where the 5 hour set feels like 45 minutes and all of a sudden it's over and you're like, what happened? And then you'll have those nights where the 5 hour set feels like 10 hours and it's sludging along. It's those, the nights that just go by like that, and they're just, that's what gets you up and gets you going to the next gig and doing the next show, because you're craving that and you're trying to get that experience again. And I don't know. I just don't know how to say it. There's just,
Well, no, I think you pointed out something really important about, I mean, art in general, music specifically, but it's like the community aspect of this stuff, right? Like, I mean, it's one thing for me to sit and enjoy my music on my own, which by the way, I was Mo's biggest listener of 2020, 23. So, not to brag too much, but, if that's a brag, but, so, I mean, it's not that I don't like, or that the in-person or the solo experience, is one thing. But then when you have an opportunity to go see that performed and you're with a group of other people who are like-minded and care about what you're listening to also, and for each person in that room, it affects them differently or it speaks to them in their own way. It's this really intimate personal experience, but it's also communal, right? So
Yeah.
it's like you've got both of these things happening at the same time on different levels. And, like as I'm sitting there bawling like a child and everybody's looking at me like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? At the same time, that song might influence somebody else to start a business or pursue their passion or, come out of the closet or whatever their thing is, right? I mean, whatever their personal drama is, maybe that song is the thing that helps them find it. And
Yeah.
so I think, and I don't think there's too many art forms that do that. If you think of paintings and things like that, I mean, certainly people are inspired by art and paintings and things like that. But I think music has a unique spot that, I mean, first of all, being kind of universal, right? Anybody's ears can hear it, even if you don't speak the language,
Well,
and take something
think
from
of, I hate to go here, but I will. Think of hymns in church. They're designed to evoke an emotion, and they kind of like get you in that frame of mind, and whether it's hymns at church or rock music or there's a reason that music brings us together, and it's because I honestly think it's the waveform. I think it's like it brings everyone together in a similar. They're all having the same experience in their own way, and you're talking about breaking down in tears at the Moe's show, like that's your experience. There's I've been brought to tears over music before. I've been brought to tears over. It's like there's just something about it that is different than any other type of art form, and I think it's
well, and like you say, it might be the physical resonance of that sound in your head, right? I mean,
yeah.
it may be almost biological, and probably some scientist is going to be pissed off at us for, going, I mean, because it's probably obviously that. But at the same time, it's like, but there's something for sure, it's intangible, but you can feel it with music. And that's the thing. So, I mean, to your point about, hymns or classical music or whatever, like, I mean, all these things behave differently in your head. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and so, for one person, listening to classical music will help their brain work in a way that's very efficient. They're able to get a lot done. And, for other people, they need to be listening to death metal to accomplish the same thing, so it's like, so it's kind of interesting, but it for sure has to do with vibration and resonance and all, even just your physical equipment to be able to hear a song or, the, I don't know, thickness of your skull. So when it's bouncing around in your head, these waveforms perform in a certain way for you. It's like, I mean, the experience, I mean, yes, I mean, there's this communal aspect of it. And I mean, I think we all hear stuff, but at the same time, I think too, we maybe don't even hear everything the same way. Right. Yeah. Like, I mean, they always say that a lot of people hate hearing the sound of their voice because you hear it in your head in one way, but the way that like a microphone captures you is different. Right. So when you hear the playback, in some cases it may not even sound like you, or it makes you uncomfortable or whatever, but it's like, but this is what the world's hearing, so they're getting a different view, same person, same voice, same whatever, but the way that it bounces around in your head versus the way it bounces around in someone else's is totally different. And so, so I think it's, I don't know. I think there's a lot to it, but I think it's, I mean, obviously we're pretty passionate about it.
Yeah. We could probably talk about this subject for another 2 hours, but yeah, I'll have to send you some of these recordings and let you check them out. I think I sent some to you earlier.
Yeah, I saw a couple come over in the text. So
that was a couple versions ago. So they've gotten a little bit better. But
awesome.
Yeah, I'll have to.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Send you the Spotify link when I post it on Spotify
for the quote unquote album release. Yeah, no, that'll be awesome. So anyway, well, cool. Well, hey man, good visiting with you. I hope, the holidays and everything were great, and Happy New Year to you and Happy New Year to everybody that listens to the show. And we're really excited for 2024. We've already got a long list of people booked out, and I think we're going to have some great guests this year. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. We didn't really get to, I did the Aggie Awards without you this year. So we didn't really get to do the
little collaborative
so we'll do it now. Thank you so much for listening, and if you like what we're doing, please comment, do the whole bullshit that we don't want to promote every week, but it helps get us up the algorithms and see if we can actually turn this into something cool.
Yep.
It
Also,
is something cool, but it'd be cool for more people to hear it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And also I just want to mention our YouTube channel too, for people who just listen to this as a regular podcast. We do publish video versions of all this, because I know you're dying to see our faces. But but there is, our YouTube channel is kind of gaining steam, and people seem to really like the content over there. We're going to continue trying to optimize and be a little more, publish more things, longer form, shorter form, all kinds of things. So keep an eye out for that. But subscribe to us over there and follow along with the show. It's a lot of fun. And, if you go back and you look at some of the really old episodes, and we didn't have video all the way back to the beginning. But if you look at, we probably started around episode 10 or 15 with like rudimentary video. And you can start to see sort of, how far the show has come and all that stuff. I think it's really cool. And for people, most people weren't with us back then. And so, but we've always kept everything up kind of in perpetuity, so you can go all the way back to episode 1 and slog through it if you really wanted to. And
I don't recommend it, but you can if you want to.
But as a matter of historical record, we've always kept it up. But it's a little bit of one of these things. And, as people are looking at the new year and resolutions, whether you buy into them or not, and any of that kind of stuff, it is cool to look back at episode 1, as horrible as it was, and just go, oh yeah, no, we've made actual progress here. The show has grown, our guests have improved, the conversations we're having are more important and more impactful. We're, sharing better information all the time to more and more people all the time. And it's pretty awesome. And it's made totally possible by the people who listen and by the people who share and all that stuff. So we appreciate all you've done so far, and all you will continue to do. And we appreciate you. Happy New Year.
Yep.
So,
well,
cool.
Thanks, Ryan. It's been fun to catch up.
Yeah, no joke. Yeah, no, we were talking briefly with our guest before we had to cancel and reschedule that unfortunately this seems to be the way that me and Mike get to visit more often than not nowadays. So so I appreciate everybody sitting through this conversation, and hopefully you found it somewhat entertaining. Yeah. So, but anyway, to go out with a bang like we normally do, which I don't know if it's really that big a bang really, but thanks to everybody who tunes into the show this week and every week. We'll see you guys next time.